Next, requesting Mrs. Sunita Kohli ma'am to please join us on stage to receive the bouquet, and requesting Ms. Tanvi and Mr. Arif to please welcome her. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have a huge round of applause. Yes, she is an Indian interior designer, architectural restorer, and furniture manufacturer. She was awarded the Padma Shri by the Government of India in 1992. Very warm welcome, ma'am. Please have your seat. Next, requesting architect Divya Kush, former President, Indian Institute of Architects, to please join us and receive the bouquet. Ladies and gentlemen, let's have a huge round of applause once again. A very warm welcome, sir. Glad that you have joined us today here. Next, requesting architect Vipul Gupta, who is the President of Architect Association Noida, Vice President of UP Architect Association, and member Apex Body Delhi NCR, the Art of Living Trust. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, let's welcome her. A very warm welcome, sir. Thank you for joining us. Let's start with a welcome note. First, requesting once again Mrs. Sunita Kohli ma'am to please say a few words to all of us.
So I just thought that I was asked to speak for 5 minutes, so I just thought I would speak on what is it that makes architecture and architects and designers relevant. Because, and I think there is much to commend these two disciplines and the discipline also together. And I mean, when you think about architecture, what is it that is, what is the greatness of architecture? And I think, you know, great architecture has to have a timeless quality about it, to be durable, and to also be functional, and at the same time raise the human spirit. So I've been an architect, I run an architectural firm, since 2010. I head an architectural firm of architects, designers, and other disciplines. But I have been an interior designer and an architectural conservationist since 1971. So I have been there for over 50 years in this profession. So I just thought it's been a long journey in which I have learned much, and I continue to learn. And so the best thing I thought was, let me speak about my own journey and learnings along the way, and how I learned and why I learned. So I'm going to try and see what the changes are happening there. So I grew up, I was born in Lahore in 1946, and I grew up in Lucknow, where my parents had moved after partition. My father, Rajput, but naturalized Lahori. My mother from Quetta and Multan. And so which way is this? Okay, so that's Lahore, and that is Lucknow. My father, even though they came dispossessed of anything, but what they never lost was their education. So in our home, there was a great emphasis on education, on books, on just the sheer joy of books, the sheer joy of, we used to, I know, read dictionaries and read atlases for fun. And I think that habit has never gone, little realizing that a time would come when one would travel and travel across the world, fortunately. And so inbuilt in all this was a wonderful sense of curiosity that endured. And the first place that I went to, the first major World Heritage Site, was Mahabalipuram. I must have been 9. That was the previous slide. And on that same trip, I remember that one went to Sri Lanka and to Kandy, and one had gone to the botanical gardens there and seen that amazing banyan tree. And that many years later, I'm working on a major book on World Heritage Sites in India. So it seems when I had been preparing for it from age 9, because Apart from Dholavira, I think I've been to every site many, many times. So, then of course, you know, with my parents, we used to summer in Kashmir year after year. It was Kashmir, and then it used to be, that's the Shalimar Gardens. And then we would also go to Mussoorie. And then we would go to South India, go to Mysore, and this is Tipu Sultan's palace, and the absolute aesthetic beauty of that summer palace of Tipu Sultan. And we would, from Lucknow, at least twice a year, we would drive up to Delhi for holidays, and we used to go to Qutub Minar, which you saw. And to go to Qutub Minar in those days when one was a child used to be a picnic outside town. I mean, there was no Delhi beyond Jorbagh, Khan Market, Golf Links. And Jorbagh, of course, was then a market of pansaris. It wasn't what it's become today. Every second shop is selling branded shoes. So that wasn't what the Khan Market we grew up with. So we would come seeing the Red Fort, seeing Jama Masjid, and so all these travels would, and South India, you know, Brihadeshwara and all that. I mean, one of the great, part of the great living Chola temples of South India. So all that one did in one's youth. When I started, I had once been to Bhimbetka, but not with my parents. But when I became chairperson of the School of Planning and Architecture, one started visiting Bhimbetka, which, as you all know, has the earliest representation of Indian art in the whole subcontinent. Everything there is 30,000 years old. And one would see the other sites like Sanchi, which is absolutely glorious. I don't need to tell a room full of architects that that is the largest Buddhist site in the world. And it is, in fact, from there that Lachians took the dome, took the railing, and took other features which were Buddhist. And many years later, probably the 5-year restoration I did of Rashtrapati Bhavan in a very substantive way was from 85 to 89, and then again in 2012. And so everything in history connects up, all knowledge connects up, and you don't know when you are going to be able to, use that. And of course, when to Khajuraho, and much earlier in the 70s, because 1975, this was the first hotel I had ever designed, was the Oberoi in Khajuraho, where one actually learnt on the shop floor. I have to tell you that I'm not a trained architect, I'm not a trained designer. It's only experience which has taught me, but I'm very research-based, and the disciplines I have studied have been literature, both from my BA, master's, incomplete PhD on Christopher Marlowe, and along the way, I got a Visharad, which is equivalent to a BA in Hindustani classical music. So I think it's all of that which makes relevant architects and designers, because you never know what is it from the depths of your being, from the visual vocabulary that you have acquired through experiences over the years that you are going to draw upon. And many times to Hampi. Can you change the next? And I mean, as you know, Indo-Islamic architecture, and we grew up in a very syncretic world, which I think is the basis of our greatness. And earlier you just saw the crescent on the escarpment, which is Ajanta. And who would imagine that there would be the sort of beautiful structures within, and with the beautiful paintings. So, that's of course the beautiful Padma Pani and one of the greatest paintings in the world. And then the magnificent Kailash temple. I remember being so awestruck that this is a monolithic structure designed by architects, musicians, designers, engineers, dancers, from the top down, because it did not allow one for a single mistake. Can you imagine that type of mathematical calculation that was required then? And one wonders what were the sort of instruments with which they could create this magnificence on this scale. And then, of course, there's one, many times, Orissa, Lingaraj temple, Konarak. And this is what, when I did the Oberoi in 1982, in the Oberoi in Bhubaneswar, how you translate from that, not taking exactly what you have seen, but you translate the craft skills. In this case, the stonework done by the late Raghunath Mahapatra, who is the only Sthapati who got a Padma Vibhushan in our country. And you translate what you see as a ceiling in the Mukteshwar temple onto a floor pattern and then take it back to the ceiling. So all this happens with experience, with inquiry, with travel. And that's the last slide. Again, it's the Oberoi in Bhubaneswar. And I thank you very much for your kind attention.
Now, one special request. Once again, I would like to request Architect Divya Kush and Architect Vipul Gupta to please join us to give the award to Mrs. Sunita Kohli. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, let's have a thunder round of applause and let's honor Mrs. Sunita Kohli. Come on, everyone, all together. Congratulations, ma'am.